And I know it's hard to say goodbye to a brother in arms. But I want you to know something else. That no ranger who dies in the line of duty will ever be forgotten. Nor will he have ever died in vain or unavenged.
Wasteland 2 is a Kickstarter success story that came to be thanks to over $2.9 million in pledges. The game is a sequel to the first Wasteland and takes place in a post-apocalyptic America and follows your squad of unlikely heroes, the Desert Rangers, in a quest to bring peace to the Wastelands through hours of plot-driven gameplay and party turn-based combat. The game is chock full of RPG elements, and right from the start you'll be tasked with creating your squad of rangers, deciding on their skill sets and attributes, which will play a huge role in how you play the game. You can also select from a pool of pre-made characters if you so choose to. When done, you're in the world and free to explore this RPG adventure. Expect to be running around, receiving objectives from NPCs by engaging them in in-depth conversation dialogues and over your radio, directing you to places of interest and new locations. The world of Wasteland is vast, and to get around, you will have to navigate the world map, but be warned, going too far without replenishing your water supply has consequences, and you may be intercepted by bands of outlaws and creatures in combat. The combat itself takes place on fairly well created maps and uses a turn-based system for your squad to trade blows with the enemies. There is a cover system in place, and the various weapons and skills equipped on your characters at the beginning plays a big role here. Having played through the Wasteland 2 Director's Cut over the free weekend, here are our pros and cons of the game plus our final verdict on if it's worth the full price. Pros. Narrative. Wasteland 2 contains a deep and rich story that begs to be explored further by the inquisitive mind. Some dialogues are well voiced over, both by NPCs and over the radio. Furthermore, more narratives and even quests can be unlocked through dialogue just by having some of your characters with dialogue modifier skills, such as kiss ass, partake in conversations. It also pays to listen attentively to chatter over the radio on your journey, as it leads you to more plot discovery. Fair warning though, not everything is voiced over. You'll be doing a lot of reading a la Pillars of Eternity, and if that's not your thing, hey, it's an old school RPG game. Get used to it. Solid RPG mechanics. How can you tell if a game takes its RPG tag seriously? Through character creation, of course. As mentioned earlier, you're given the freedom to build your characters the way you want to, choosing from a wide variety of skills, attributes, specializations, and weapons. All of them affect your gameplay later on, and we loved how we had to mix and match each character in our squad of rangers to complement each other. Most of the objects in the world is interactive, and in true RPG fashion, some will require you to make perception checks for traps, clues, and etc. Even in dialogue scenes, you are free to manually type in your responses if you've been paying attention. Now that's cool, and you can really get immersed. Setting. If you're a fan of Wasteland and games such as Fallout 1 and 2, you'd feel right at home in Wasteland 2. The setting is everything you'd expect it to be, and the game shines in its post-apocalyptic world with sprinkles of steampunk. There were times where I felt I was in the same world as Mad Max. Replay value. Wasteland 2 is that type of game that requires a couple of playthroughs to get the best bang for your buck. The game already offers hours of content to consume, and with so many different skills and builds for your party to experiment with, it's no surprise that the replay value is one of its many strengths. Cons. Camera. While the camera does its job consistently, often we found it to be erratic and downright annoying. It gets in the way during important dialogue moments and cuts through objects, which can be a downer, especially during tense combat encounters. Bugs. Upon the game's release in 2014, bugs were one of the main issues reported by a majority of players. Today, we're sad to report that some still do exist. Take a step too far in your quest investigation and you may bug out the dialogue, and in one other case, an NPC in our party refused to do anything during his turn, which made us sit and wait for a good few minutes before we decided to reload. Graphics. The director's cut promised a graphic overhaul that served to improve the environments, character details, and overall aesthetic of the game. However, even with the enhancements, the game still looks a little dated on both native resolutions of 1080p and higher. We obviously can't compare Wasteland 2 with other isometric 2D RPGs of legend, but we seem to yearn for the latter if done correctly. Combat. Yes, the combat has turned out to be something of a letdown over the course of the game. In the opening hour or so, we no doubt had fun experimenting with the weapons and combat skills available. Crouch and you'll get a hit chance modifier. Set up an ambush and it's the closest thing that resembles XCOM's satisfying Overwatch mechanic. But as the game progresses, it doesn't add much to the combat and it quickly becomes repetitive. Environments are not destructible and enemies are basic in design, making for fairly predictable battles that sometimes we wish we could skip to progress the story faster. RNG reliant. Our biggest issue with Wasteland 2 is how the random number generator, or RNG, dictates pretty much every outcome in some of the core RPG gameplay, such as hacking, unlocking crates, and many more. The problem is, even with the high enough skill, the RNG still finds a way to screw you over, which tells us that the system is purely reliant on chance and not the skill level of your character. That can pretty much be frustrating since it takes a lot of time and effort to level a certain skill to make these obstacles a breeze, only to find that it was all for nothing. Bummer. Our verdict. It's not quite at the level of Pillars of Eternity or Divinity Original Sin, but Wasteland offers its own blend of story and gameplay that holds its own. For a deep immersive RPG experience that offers hours of replayability, we do recommend checking out Wasteland 2, but not at the full price. Pick it up during a sale when possible, as we've seen it go for as low as 35 ringgit. If we were to give it a score, it would be a 6 out of 10. And that sums up our review of Wasteland 2. If you like our content and want to see more, do subscribe to us here on YouTube for more game reviews and like our video to show your support. If you disliked it, leave a comment and tell us what we're missing. My name is Adrian from Game Reviews Malaysia and we'd like to thank you for watching.